Hello, everybody. It's your old friends from the Best of All Worlds podcast here on the Nerds Roast channel. Myself, Jonathan, and the man to know, Jerry Soul. Jerry, we're on to episode 11.
Yeah,
Very exciting.
I tell you what, we needed that little bit of a rest to get over those two episodes that we did
That we
because
did.
my those were barn burners and a half.
Mm.
So far, it's still our main episode, our top
Yeah.
rate episode has not been beaten, but it
Nope.
was by one,
It was a half point in it.
by a half a point. Sorry, half a
Half a
point.
point in it.
That's
Yeah.
how close it came. But best of all worlds, or best of both worlds, should say, best of all worlds being the podcast.
That's us.
Best of
Yeah.
best of both worlds. Um, the ramifications, as I said in the last video we did, I said it about 10 times. The
Mm.
ramifications of that episode is far-reaching,
Yes.
more far-reaching than any other Star Trek episode or film, in fact.
Mm.
So, yeah, we really had it. We enjoyed ourselves in the last one. We will see with this one because
Yes.
we are delving into something again that I have very little knowledge of in terms of Star Trek. I know the ins and outs of Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise.
Mm.
Even I haven't actually watched the newest season of Discovery yet. I think I'm just going to binge that one, and then the first season of
Mm.
Picard, and of course, very soon we're going to be getting
Season
more
two.
more Picard, more
Yep.
Discovery, more Lower Decks, which I'm actually really looking forward to. I love Lower Decks.
Yes.
I think
Same.
it's absolutely brilliant. I've said that the likes of the Mandalorian is the most Star Wars, and Star Wars.
Mm.
Well, I genuinely believe Lower Decks is the most Star Treks, and Star Trek.
Oh, it 100% is.
It's
And
absolutely brilliant.
it's the difference when you can tell Trekkies are actually writing the show, if you know what I mean. Like it's great when you have like Frakes and like Burt, LeVar Burton, and the rest of them kind of directing and producing and steering the ship because
Yeah,
they are taking different kind of like you have different writers and directors giving their kind of takes on it. But when you have people who are proper fucking little nerdy little fuckers writing the show, it adds so much to it. Like just name dropping people left, right, and center. It's fucking great. I mean, in which other Star Trek show would you prank call Armis? Like no one would
yeah,
be ballsy enough to do that.
true. Yeah, true. And
No.
well, considering that he Armis, now that's the
Kind of evil, yeah.
yes, he did kill Tasha Yar. So at the end of the day, he's a killer. So prank
Yeah,
calling
he
him
deserves
is
it.
probably not a good idea.
No, but he deserves it anyway. He deserves to be fucked around with. But in any case, yes, we are taking a bit of a grand departure in terms of what we're going to be covering over the next couple of episodes, Jerry. If you will, we're going to where no Jerry has gone before, which is the original series. So I've provided a taste menu of the original series over the next couple of episodes. We described them at the end of the last episode. So we want to retract that, and you can obviously see from the episode title what we're covering today. But Jerry, how much of the original series are you aware of? Obviously, you know the main characters, you know them from the movies, but
Yeah.
episode wise, how versed are you in it? Because we've watched one so far on the show, but anything else are you familiar with?
I know. I'm not familiar with a lot of it.
Okay.
I've never watched it, to put it that way. So that episode that we watched, which was, what was it called?
It was the Enterprise incident.
Enterprise incident, I should say. That was the very first full Star Trek original series episode that I'd ever watched.
Interesting.
So there are, over the course of watching every other Star Trek show, you do pick up bits and pieces of what happens in the original series. So this particular episode I have heard about many times from people, and many people have said that it's probably one of the best original series episodes. So I'm actually really looking forward to it. And the fact that it introduces it, is this the first introduction of the other pointy-ear guys?
Yes,
Am I
this
right
is
about
actually
that?
the first Romulan episode. Yeah.
Okay. So the fact that we're getting our first Romulan episode here from the original series, I'd like to see how Kirk responds to them.
Yes.
The fact that even now, I think even now Romulans are very much, we still don't really know that much about them.
Yeah.
After all the seasons of Star Trek that we've had, we still don't know that much about them. We learned, I think we learned more in one single episode of Deep Space Nine that we've ever learned of the Romulans, which was Inter Arnhem Silent Legis.
Yeah, Cinema Legis, yeah.
Yeah, so you do actually learn a lot about the Romulans in that episode. The fact that you're on Romulus and it is a very more of a peaceful setting than it's ever been before. But like even in Star Trek Nemesis, you don't really learn that much about the Romulans. It's more about the
Yeah.
Remans and Picard's clone. So you don't.
You could
really
also
learn
argue
about
the
that.
first seasons of Picard did their best to add some more kind of Romulan lore, more
Yes.
so the kind of like the inner circles and the kind of the secret police and all that sort of stuff. But definitely about like kind of the kind of Romulan culture, if you like.
Yeah.
They had the fact they had like a chapter of essentially warrior monks or warrior nuns, even I should say.
Yeah.
And the idea of absolute candor, which was something established already, I think, even from early on as this season, as this show. So it's definitely something where like they knew generally what they were going with the Romulans, but they hadn't really sharpened it until perhaps the end of the Next Generation.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. So,
yeah,
but yeah, we're gonna get into it, and we're gonna see how the Romulans are portrayed, and we are going to be seeing a very familiar face as well in that process. So
I think I know who you're talking about, but I'll say nothing
Yes.
until it happens.
Until it happens, precisely. So in that case, Jerry, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to rock.
Let's do it. On 3, 2, 1. Engage. So, that flyby. You can barely see the strings.
There's no. That's the updated version, so there are no strings.
No. Yes, I quite like that joke. Oh, look at camera.
Ooh.
No.
The one thing I always wonder about Captain Kirk, especially in the original series, just how much fucking makeup is he wearing?
It's hard to tell, like, because like Shatner does have a very good tan, and even when like, let's be fair, like he tries to get his kid off as much as he can in this episode or in the show just generally, and like he is built, like he does have a good physique, like you know. I think certainly when you see the likes of the Klingons now, you definitely see the fake tan like leathered on, like
yeah.
Oh, look at Scotty.
Wait, hold on. Oh, it's like, Jesus Christ, is Scotty getting married? What the hell?
No, he's not. But as is apparently tradition for certain ships, I guess the captain is arranging over a marriage.
Yeah.
Wooden vessels, all ship masters have had one happy privilege. That of uniting people in the bonds of matrimony.
A surprisingly Christian bit of stuff here, because Gene Roddenberry famously was a hardcore radical atheist. He hated shit like this.
It's interesting.
Again, we don't really kind of like appreciate it now, but like even seeing like an Asian, an Indian, and a black woman all in the same chair is a big deal in the 1960s. That's
a huge.
That's record breaking. Huge deal. Like that's the sort of stuff that like that would be actually been like complaints about earlier on.
Yeah.
At that time.
I'm assuming they just basically said fuck the complaints.
Yeah. Well, that's the saying. It was a case of like, that's why they brought in the Sulu character, the Chekhov character, the Uhura character to basically say this shit that's happening now is going to be irrelevant in the 22nd century, and you have to kind of admire that ballsy attitude of it.
Yeah,
you know. But that being said, like,
well, this is the 23rd century, isn't it?
23rd century. Sorry, yeah.
And Enterprise was 22nd.
Yeah. Yes, it was. Yeah.
That was the 2150s. I think it started in
2150s. Yeah. And then it was 100 years later would have been the Enterprise A. So yeah, that makes sense. There's something that's wonderfully 60s about the music, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But the thing is, I don't mind the music. I have to say, it's something that I genuinely don't mind. I actually like the updated version of that music in the newer movies. It's fantastic.
So there we go.
Patrolling outposts guarding the neutral zone between planets Romulus and Remus and the rest of the
galaxy. There you go. Remus getting a hat tip already.
Yeah.
USS Enterprise is moving to investigate and assist.
Outpost 4 reported under attack, sir. The message terminates.
I'll get out your chair now. I was giving a warm.
I don't know what it is as well. That chair. I just love that chair.
It's a really nice chair, isn't
Mm. I love going to Comic-Con and sitting in it.
it? I don't know if it's my favorite captain's chair. I like the one on the Defiant that kind of swivels around so Cisco can just bitch slap people on the go. Like,
Yeah.
Nog?
So my least favorite, I think, is Voyager.
Yeah,
I don't
Voyager's
like
a bit.
I love the Voyager bridge, but I don't particularly like the Voyager command chair.
No.
Star sector on our screen.
That's dreadful.
That's it. And now we can see the weather front is coming from the Romulus system. It's going to hit us in a. In fairness, like this is like only one of the few times you actually see what the Romulan neutral zones have to look like.
Yeah.
You know, they don't know it's spoken about, but it's never actually told.
Referring to the map on your screen, you will note beyond the moving position of our vessel, a line of Earth outpost stations. Constructed on asteroids, they monitor.
You'll also notice the lifelong tradition of the original series for having random lieutenants and commanders just popping up for the episode.
Yeah. I love how, though, it's called Earth Outposts.
Yes.
Should it not be Starfleet Outposts or Federation Outposts?
Federation Outpost should be,
That's obviously just something very early on in the show. It is the first season, after all, so I will let them away with that.
There's a bit of confusion over when this episode came out because technically this is the 9th episode they produced, but it's the 14th in the series, or the 15th in the season, if that makes sense.
Know what they think of Earth. Treaty set by subspace radio established this neutral zone, entry into which by either side constitute an act of war.
Can you tell this is a metaphor for the Iron Curtain? Does it come across at all?
Not at all.
That my command orders on the subject are precise and inviolate. No act, no provocation. Sufficient reason to violate the zone. We may defend ourselves. Must be necessary. Avoid interspace war. Both these outposts and this vessel considered expendable.
Wow.
Yeah.
We know Outpost 4 has been attacked, sir. So if we intercept Romulans now, after a whole century, what will a Romulan ship look like? Mr. Stiles, I doubt it on radio and identified themselves.
Oh, so we don't have Chekhov yet.
No, Chekhov doesn't get introduced until season 2. So season 1 is full of these random like helmsmen and tactical officers and the like.
All lost in that war. Their war, Mr. Stiles. Okay. Outpost 2 coming into sense.
Quite a Picard like writing for Kirk so far, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very, very controlled, diplomatic.
He hasn't
Commanding.
been really over the top yet.
No, Kirk is William Shatner is very good at being an intense Kirk. Like he doesn't get the credit he deserves in that sense.
Debris. Both Earth outposts gone. Asteroids they were constructed on. Open the channel to our nearest command base. What are our reports on our position?
So again, they've already kind of gone for a certain tone and direction with this episode. It's a very much a take on the submarine drama movie, the submarine thriller.
Yeah.
So it's like Das Boot.
So Hunt for Red October even as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of stuff they're going for. And it's very obvious from the start. And it keeps that tone through the entire episode. It's very different to the kind of the hijinks that the first season gets to.
Yeah.
But like
Do
Roddenberry
we
loved
know
this
at
sort
this
of
point
shit.
about cloaking devices?
Kind of, because the Klingons have them as well.
Not get off my hook this easily. I'm gonna marry you, mister.
Oh, which one of them was going to die?
Maybe both.
starboard and midship weapons show ready.
I do love that, like
What the fuck are they wearing?
just good like overalls. They're the grunts. They're no relation to JP.
Outposts 2, 3, and 8 are gone. Unknown weapon completely destroyed. And our deflector shield attached. Life form is power. First attack blew our deflector shield. They hit us again with our deflector shield gone. Confirm what hit you, Ransom. What vessel? Identity. Space vessel. Only glimpse of it. Can you locate the intruder for us? Disappeared somehow.
There's a cloaking device.
I had weapons now switching to visual. ISM.
So as you can see, it's a case of like, you know, if it's a submarine, like they can't see the submarine, they can't see the target is. So it's the same idea. Hello, yeah, real fire.
Yeah.
Nice. That's really well done.
Affirmative, your visual answer. What do you have in the intruder? No answer to our challenge. Some form of high energy plasma.
Romulan plasma torpedoes.
Yes. Weapons that don't necessarily make it to the next generation. They can't switch the phases.
No, you hear of them in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
But you never see them. You only ever see the disruptors.
Yeah. There it is.
You have phaser capacity, we're still out of range. Pull that ship off.
There's your plasma weapon.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that music thing ends up being the mirror thing, but it's used a lot in the original series, at least in season 1. Like it comes like a kind of a catch-all, like enemy kind of music, like when the Klingons show up or when the Romulans show up.
The intruder, Mr. Spock, disappeared. Interesting how they became visible for just a moment. They opened fire. Perhaps necessary when they use the clip on the motion sensor, Captain. Could be the intruder. Go to full magnification. Read his on full max.
And there is nothing there.
Still looks like fucking already done, you prick.
Yeah, that was like the polite Starfleet way of, I'm doing it.
It's done, for fuck's sake.
Shut up. You'll also notice that the actual premise of this episode is almost the same as the Neutral Zone episode in The Next Generation. Because again, a lot of sensors on the border of the like Federation to Romulan border gets wiped out again.
Yeah.
But except this time it was the Borg. Again, there was very much a curse of the first season of The Next Generation to basically reuse plots from the original series and just like brush them up and then kick them out into space again.
You see, the first two seasons were very much Roddenberry.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It was that was exactly it.
I love that music just kicking in. I'm like, yeah.
They're very
and
strategic.
Then get the stink eye from Kirk there.
Yeah.
Negative. Mr. Sulu will match course and speed with the object on our sensors. Exactly. If he has sensors, I want to think that we're a reflection. Under no circumstance are you to cross into the neutral zone without my direct orders. Cancel battle stations all day. Stand by orders. That's interesting. John. I respectfully remind the captain what has happened. The Romulans have crossed the neutral zone, attacked our outpost, killed our men. Mr. Stiles, add to that the fact that it was a sneak attack. Mr. Stiles, are you questioning my orders? Negative. I'm pointing out that we could have Romulan spies aboard this ship.
That's a bit of a stretch, Mr. Stiles.
I agree, sir. Respectfully recommend all decks maintain security alert.
Very well. All deck security alert. Security alert, sir.
Very unusual to see the captain's orders questioned so heavily there, and him to go, "All right, okay, I'll change my mind."
It is, isn't it? It's kind of it's an unusual take for like the Edinburgh's crew to be so paranoid, but again, it's getting over the point that this is such a claustrophobic situation.
Yeah,
where like they're afraid there's going to be a second Romulan war,
Yeah.
and they're going to win.
exactly. It's not only that the officer said that his family had died in the war.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
it's like, that's why he's so paranoid.
He's paranoid, but he has like a predisposition hatred for the Romulans already.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Look.
Interesting take on them now, I have to say.
Yes.
And there he is.
Yes. Mark Leonard. Again, the Spock is going like, yep.
Yeah.
So now they're all thinking, oh, is Spock the spy?
Yeah. Look how they're all looking at him like,
Yeah.
Jesus.
Now again, bear in mind, like it is a trope from the submarine kind of dramas that like, there's a Nazi or a a Soviet spy on board that's sabotaging. And now Kirk is thinking, right?
I get that, Mr. Stiles. Just Mr. Spock, probably translate it for yourself. I assume you're complimenting Mr. Spock on his ability to decode. I'm sure, sir.
Quite subtle acting in this, isn't it? From Spock.
Yeah.
Won't be able to be sure.
Oh,
Leave any bigotry in your quarters. There's no room for it on the bridge. So I make myself clear.
Ooh.
I have to say, Kirk is having a strong episode so far.
Fucking super strong episode. He's not he's not being what I've always been led to believe of Kirk.
No, Shatner can do it, man. Shatner's a good actor. I'm telling you, like he has a different way around it. It's like he's unorthodox in the way he does it. And it's also the direction as well, where he is like told to gurn like half the time anyway. But when it comes to like little episodes like this, he's very good at it.
Extreme range.
Oh, here we go.
Changing course. Stay with them.
I know that everyone's kind of leaning in, just like watching the screen, like
Yeah.
it's great because they're very clever with the.
Oh, look at that visual.
Yes. Now this is great. We're seeing it from the Romulan side as well. We never get this with the Klingons.
Commander, it is our judgment we run from the reflection. Perhaps so, but my judgment.
And you know what I like as well? The Romulans speak differently to the Federation. It's very subtle, but the grammar is just ever so slightly twisted.
Multi-system answer. It's good we approach the neutral zone. Not too soon for me to see the stars at all. Therefore, infinite. Why does he not take? Just study the enemy. Yes. I was their commander, that is fine.
I do like the Romulan dress. It's very on the nose with what they were inspired by.
A message was dispatched. Broken the rule of silence. Or more prayers of this glorious mission. Your carelessness might have ended this glorious mission. We'll reduce 2 steps in rank. Return to post.
Interesting.
Yes, isn't it?
Dear Commander. His friends of his kind. Power is danger. Danger and I are old companions.
Oh, what a line.
100 campaigns.
What a fucking line that is.
No need to tell you what happens the moment we reach home with proof of the Earthman's weakness. And we will have proof. The Earth Commander will follow. He must. When he attacks, we will destroy. Our gift to the homeland. Another war. If we are the strong, is this not the signal for war? Must it always be so? How many comrades have we lost to this? A portion, death and more death. Even enough for the British test. I find myself wishing for destruction before we can return. Worry not. Like you, I'm too well trained in my duty to forget. Continue evasive maneuvers. Now, back to the first course.
There, I loved a lot of that scene, by the way.
Yeah. That was great.
That was fantastic. And again, the right actor in the right role for that.
Mm-hmm.
Just so conflicted. He doesn't want any part of this at all.
Back on their original course, with the neutral zone.
So obviously the Romulan cloaking device isn't quite as good because they're able to
At
track
point
them.
in time. Yeah.
The neutral zone in less than an hour. Assuming, of course, that we don't turn back. We now have a board.
Stiles will just not let it go, will he? It's just like,
No, he really won't.
Bring it to the briefing room. Are you ready, gentlemen? The utmost protective shield. Astrogenium. This is the hardest substance known to our science. Lab theorizes an enveloping energy plasma, forcing an implosion. Comments?
Now, bear in mind, like they are kind of using plasma as if it is like a form of energy, and which is it's a state of matter. It's basically like liquid and solid at the same time, basically. So at that point, it's like intense heat and intense radiation. So yes, that is technically accurate.
Well, gentlemen, the question still remains: can we engage them with a reasonable possibility of victory? No question. They are a power that is simple yet possible, meaning we cannot run. Be used in chasing them or retreating. Sir, go ahead, Mr. Stiles. I call the session for have to attack immediately. But they're still on our side of the neutral zone. There would be no doubt that they broke the treaty. Attack without a visible target. How do we aim our pieces? Aim with sensors. Not accurate, but if we blanket them, we can know for a lucky shot before they zero in on us. And if we don't, once back they'll report that we saw their weapons.
When have you ever seen like Starfleet officers arguing with each other?
This wrong. You run away from them and you guarantee war. They'll be back, not just one ship, but with everything they've got. You know that, Mr. Science Officer. You're the expert in these people, but you've always left out that one point. Why? I'm very interested in why. Now, mister. I agree. Suggesting we fight to prevent a fight. Based on what? Memories of a war over a century ago. Theories about a people we've never even met face to face. We know what they look like. Yes, indeed we do, Mr. Stiles. If the Romulans are an offshoot of my vaulted blood, and I think this likely, then attack becomes even more imperative. War is never imperative, Mr. Spock. It is for them, Doctor. Vulcan, like Earth, had its aggressive, colonizing, period. Savage. By Earth standards.
It's very hard to actually commentate on this episode because it's actually just really interesting. It's such a tense and really like thick with writing.
Captain the bridge.
This is a work, Captain.
What's our position?
Course unchanged, sir. Estimating treaty boundary at 21 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Continuing to broadcast tactical reports.
Affirmative, Captain.
And at this distance.
Approximately 3 hours before receiving a reply to our first message.
And of course, ahead, Mr. Spock. A comet magnitude 7 dead ahead. And the intruder changing course toward it. Comet Paris 4. Our position? Quite ordinary. 9 eyes mass trail.
A book.
Yeah.
And when an object
Weird, isn't it?
passes through
Mm.
an invisible object, it leaves a visible trail. Not changed.
Actually, you can kind of see it there. It's a table of comets. That's what it is. It's a guide on comets. It's a bit naff, isn't it?
Very strange.
Yeah. So yeah, very different episode of Star Trek.
Mm.
This is them this is them gearing up for potentially a conflict, and this is where you get the vibe of it.
I'm loving the music.
Yeah, all the original series music, like it's only a certain amount of pieces, but they use them in most episodes. But they use them very well.
Mm.
Again, we mentioned about like how there was like the 100 years difference between Enterprise and the original series.
Hmm.
It's a really shame we didn't get that extra series of Enterprise because then you would have got the Earth Romulan War, and I think that's a really big blow. Really, that could have been a fantastic arc.
Swing around the other side. Catch it. Acknowledge that. Maintaining that bearing, Captain. Let's get him, Mr. Sulu. Easy into the eyes. Behold a marvel in the dark. Who spoke of entrapment. Specific particles will obscure their sensing device.
That's why I like it. They both think they're going to get the advantage here. This is great.
Yeah.
Honestly, like this is really fucking good.
Have you never watched this?
I have watched this, but it's just I'm actually kind of like appreciating it more now that I've got my critic hat on.
Hmm.
It's such a different episode. You don't see it that much.
Escape maneuver 1, quickly.
Oh.
Sensor contact. Steady as she goes. Laser crews ready? They'll only be visible for a moment. Stand by.
Very Wrath of Cannon, isn't it?
Very. Oh.
Oh.
Sir, nothing. Last moment, he must have guessed our move. Hard to stop it now. Hard to stop. Underestimate him again. Now, fire blind, lay down a pattern. Iris pattern. All faces fire. Phaser 1. Fire. Phaser 1, fire.
Pew! So this is the traditional like mines in the underwater. So the submarines are kind of getting bobbled, but they're not taking hits. No. The Centurion got hit by some polystyrene, and as you all know, Romulans are allergic to polystyrene.
Oh, that must be so heavy.
Control circuit for now.
Ta. Yeah, that's an actual fire he's putting it.
Yeah, with his fucking hands.
Yeah, it's like nah. No,
Alex said that.
nope. They're coming in for a direct hit. All right, comes the plasma. Brace for impact.
Oh,
One base awareness. One shot and detonation. Navigation. Estimated it will overtake us in 2 minutes.
So again, that's the torpedo coming to get us. Brace yourselves. Trope.
fire the fucking torpedoes then.
Hmm.
Leave this to the space recorder and jettison media.
Yes, sir. 10 seconds to impact.
Yeah, they think they're dead.
It must have a range limit.
Oh, it's fading.
Four, 3, 2, 1.
Should have mentioned here at this point in the production, Yeoman Rand there was meant to be Kirk's love interest. But we'll get to that in guest starring when we're talking about her. See, they're both okay. It's grand.
Yay.
Phasers operational, Captain. Intruder bearing 111, Mark 20. Back to his old course. Destroyed, I wouldn't make that assumption.
Yeah, you probably see you on the sensors, like.
Don't think back, Captain of the line. We're holding steady. Course 111, Mark 14.
Now the question is, are they gonna follow him into the neutral zone?
Not a chance they follow him into the neutral zone.
See, I wasn't joking when I said the Romulans were allergic to polystyrene. He's running a fever.
Activate our cloak. Commander, our fuel runs low. Quickly. The Earth is impossible. As soon as we move. Its commander is not one to repeat a mistake.
See, again, they both, him and Kirk are always on the same wavelength in this episode. It's fantastic.
The neutral zone in 1 minute. We violate the treaty, Captain. They did, Doctor. Once inside, they can claim we did. A setup. They want. Or we furnish the provocation. We're still on our side.
For now.
Let's get them while we are. Before we enter the neutral zone. Pull ahead, Mr. Sulu. Maximum warp. Stand by. Sir. You know, their Achilles heel is to stop.
I know it's a very small thing, but the fact that you can see beads of sweat on the likes of Styles and Sulu really adds to this.
This distance will be the wildest stroke of luck. Our phase is ready. Evasive action.
Here we go.
I love how the sound of the phasers in the first season had the same sound as the torpedoes.
Yes. Clearly the same technology.
Seconds to neutral zones. One command base. My opinion, no option. My responsibility. Proceeding into the neutral zone. There we go, Mr. Sulu. Bring it back. Stay with it, Bree. I will tend to the Centurion. Centurion is dead. Why don't we fire, Commander? No. No, you shrewd, this Starship Commander. Tries to make us waste energy. It's estimated we have only enough.
Oh, it's a brainwave.
It is time. All debris into disposal tubes. Yes, Commander. The body of the Centurion, too.
Yeah, they're going to use it as a junk missile, basically.
Forgive me, my old friend. But I misuse all my experience now.
Like, you really do get the feeling that that commander does not want to be involved in this at all.
No, but I love the fact that whenever the phaser's fired, Kirk goes.
Yeah,
Like, so the phaser is so powerful that it rots the
it's
ship.
a recoil, exactly. That's
Yeah.
why it burnt out. Yeah.
However,
Like, I don't think they actually do that for any other episode. I think it's just for this because it's just like the recoil. It's so
Yeah.
it must be like an actual missile shooting from a submarine. That's why I think that's so on the nose with the type of episode they're doing.
Yeah, and for this as well, it's like, I think I don't know whether it's just this first season, but I know in next seasons the phasers are beams rather than bolts.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because again, they were very close. They're very close to the source material in terms of the Navy and that sort of thing, and they kind of like found the feed more with like what would be in space rather than being in water. But you know, that's why like you get rid of. But by the next generation, you've gotten rid of like the yeomans and commodores and stuff like that.
Yeah,
you know. Now I like this. Everything's going dark between them. This is great.
Yeah.
This is what I think is this is what I like about this one is because they only have a couple of sets anyway, but they're making the best use out of this by just changing lighting every now and then, changing the atmosphere.
Again, more submarine thing. He's whispering.
Yes. Yeah, there's no reason for them to whisper, by the way. It's just the tension of it.
Now motionless for 9 hours, 47 minutes.
And now I'm going for a sleep.
The old continuity was bad there.
Yes.
In one shot, the hand is behind the head. The other shot, the hands are in his belly.
I know. Maybe he has a twitch. Oh, sorry. You here? I'll come back later.
Look at the little cheeky smile.
Waiting for me to make the next rules.
Well, again, one of the few teams you see Kirk with self-doubt.
Yeah.
Something I seldom say to a customer, Jim.
It's a way of calling it.
In this galaxy, there's a mathematical probability. 3 million Earth type of life. And in all of the universe, 3 million galaxies like this. And over there, perhaps more.
Give or take a couple of doppelgangers.
Destroy the one name.
Bell McCoy.
again, it's very rare you see McCoy showing contrition as well.
Mm.
Everyone's acting like a bit unnatural to how we know them, but I think it's getting over the tension of the situation they're in.
Yeah, like even
Like,
Spock was a little bit emotional earlier on
exactly,
in
yeah,
the episode. You know,
yeah. Because this is it, like, because I mean, like, again, if we go back to like the Earth Romulan War, it was a stalemate. No one won from that. Hence why you have the Romulan neutral, the Romulan zone.
It's all right.
Oh. Again, that's where the paranoia kicks in. Was that a mistake from Spock, or was it intentional?
I think it's intentional.
Hmm.
Reverse course. Arrow course. Lasers. Fire.
Yeah, they've drawn him in.
Lasers. Fire.
Oh God, it's raining alabaster.
Ow! Sorcerer, that one. You reached the sun. Fuel supply all but gone. He's out of reach. A beacon. It's true. Praetor's finest and proudest flagship beacon.
It's a bird of prey, mate. Relaxed, fuck.
No, the Deredex back then.
No, back in the old days.
Point of ray into the truth. Precious. You have some of the old style nuclear warheads. It's commendable. Only for self-destruction. Place one in with the debris. Proximity fuels. Just command at once.
Old style nuclear warheads.
Warheads. Three on our scanners. Analysis. Same type as before. Except one metal cased object. Hell, hard open. Lasers, fire, point blank. Lasers, fire.
No. That's it. I know, like, that was a bit nap. My favorite one was like Uhura going no, and it's like heading towards the door.
They're at our mercy. Come on. Casualty? 22 so far. Mainly radiation burn.
Hey, lights back on. Go on, Scotty Bye.
Report, Mr. Spock. You're a device of some kind, sir. Our phaser detonated it less than 100 meters away. Chip damage. Mainly overloads and circuit burnouts. 11 cents. We've only the forward diesel room, Captain. Fully operable, Scotty? Yes, sir. Mr. Tomlinson is manning it alone. Stand by crew of the
Good on. Tomlinson was the guy getting married, by the way.
Oh, here we go.
I don't know if that adds to your speculation or not, but
That was a lot of ass by Uhura there.
Uhura, yeah. Gene Roddenberry, man.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, all the all the women in this are gonna have the same problem.
Mm.
Oh. Again, the reason I like the way he's acting here because it's already been established they've been doing this for at least 10 to 11 hours.
It will not end.
Oh.
Refuse. Permit me the glory of the children. But not my order.
And he's like, fuck you.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, or will we? Oh, look, Spock's got his little book.
This time we'll handle things without your help.
There you go. Solve that.
Interesting.
Oh. Coolant seal.
It's a coolant leak. That's a war core breach if
Yeah.
ever I heard one.
Again, another trope. The submarine is leaking water. Here they come. Uh-oh.
Fire! You give me fire.
Oh, he's running. Vulcans can run. Go on, Spock.
Come on, Spucky. Come on. Fire!
Boom! Hit the red button. Not bad at pratfalling there, lads, have to say. And look, scorch marks on the ship. Holy shit. I love the lighting, I have to say. It's so on the nose. And again, early on, they introduced that the Romulans have green blood, much like the Vulcans.
Standing by to being your survivors aboard our ship. Prepare to abandon the vessel. No, it's not our way. I regret that we meet this way. You and I are of a kind.
Take me through if he's speaking as Mark Leonard.
We are creatures of duty, Captain. My life's prize. One more duty to perform.
He's self-destructed. So, there you go.
Spock pulled me out of the phaser, saved my life. He risked his life, and after I saved the trained navigator so they could return to duty. Not capable of no other feelings in such matters. How many men did we lose? Only one. Some.
Oh.
Fucking told you. Fucking told you.
Well, we got there in the end.
Bit fucking late.
Yeah, exactly.
Bastards. I'm like, oh, Kirk, don't hit her. Don't hit her. Don't hit her. Don't hit her.
I don't think this is the episode for hitting on them, to be fair. Not the time.
Never makes any sense. No, there was a reason.
As I say, there's always casualties in war. There, that's how it ends. No sitcom ending. That's the end of the episode.
Wow.
They never do an ending like this. Like, probably just like move on. Like it's like that was just it. Back to normal. So there you go.
That was interesting, though, I have to say.
Wasn't it?
Very.
Like, again, like it's kind of interesting when we're going back to like the original series episodes, because the taste of menu we have, I feel, are not the episodes you remember, the original series for, if you know what I mean. Like the kind of joke is that it's very kind of campy, goofy nonsense with like really like daft premises and stupid episodes, that sort of thing. Now, don't get me wrong, the original series has that, but we are picking what like the stuff that really stands out from the top. That, and again, from even the four we have, there are other episodes out there that like are even more drastic than that. Because again, with the original series, they were kind of finding their feet of what was going to work and what wasn't going to work with Star Trek.
Yeah.
And with the 60s, you weren't to know whether like the campy and goofy stuff would work. Like, because again, Batman was like fucking a great like example of that, where like the campy over the top nature of it made it such a huge hit. But then when you did stuff like this, then where you have what is essentially a submarine drama in space, there's no way of knowing if that's going to be as much of a hit as, you know, Kirk and Spock having a fucking like alien dance, you know, kind of way. But that's a great example though, because that gets like, that's such an infamous episode, but when you actually like watch that episode back, it's such a more serious episode than you think it is. And it means so much more. Like, it's actually really significant for that purpose. So Jerry, before we do get into the afters, the initial thoughts of that episode, you seem pleasantly surprised by it and intrigued by it.
I was very surprised by it because, you know, you expect certain things from Kirk because, you know, he gotten such a bad reputation in terms of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And for overacting and stuff like that. But to me, now, that was brilliant. I thought that was great.
Yes.
I'm you know, I'm not always into kind of really old sci-fi shows. You know, I haven't watched any of the old Doctor Who's or even Battlestar Galactica. I've never watched. But for me, I'm pleasantly surprised by that. And it's basically, I'm now encouraged to watch more of it because I thought that was fantastic, and everything about it, absolutely everything about it, start to finish. We're gonna have a lot to go over here. I actually feel this could be a fairly high pointed episode. I genuinely believe that. Don't think it's going to get to the 90s like Best of Both Worlds or In the Pale Moonlight, but it definitely gives the others a run for their money. That was a fantastic episode. I can see why people talk about it a lot because it had a bit of everything, really.
Yeah,
it was fantastic. Yeah, really, really liked that episode.
Yeah, there you go. So we'll get into review very, very shortly, and we have no interest in the shipyards because we already have dealt with the two ships we've seen, which is the Enterprise and the Romulan Bird of Prey. So we don't need to talk about them any further. We do have a Reglo though in guest starring, which we'll get to very, very soon, right now. So there's a few one and dones which I'm going to rattle through very, very quickly. So in terms of the Romulans you saw, the Centurion who died in the episode was played by John Warburton, who has made like various different kind of, you'll notice in like you'll notice what I found in like a lot of some of the original series, like Gene Roddenberry just has a Rolodex of actors he can find basically, and there's a lot of them they're just kind of put into these cameos, and then they're put into different makeup and then use again, and then they use as a human and then put in again.
Well, so, in fairness, now when you say that Roddenberry did that, you only have to look at the likes of Next Generation, Voyager, and Deep Space Nine, and it's constantly the same actors playing different characters.
Oh, very true.
I have zero problem with that.
Not
Because they're
whatsoever.
generally
Not
good
whatsoever,
actors.
yeah.
Like Jeffrey Combs being one of them, J.G. Hertzler another one.
Yeah.
Oh, is it Armstrong? Is his name?
Yeah, Von Armstrong, yeah, was
Von
is a
yeah.
famous one. Yeah.
I think he played I think he probably played more characters than anybody.
You could have.
He
Yeah.
did loads of characters and he was fantastic. So I've no issue with that. Obviously the future the future directors and producers and showrunners of the shows took the lead from Roddenberry.
Oh, naturally, yeah.
But no, I thought that was I think that's that's a credit to them, because these actors are obviously good enough that they can play multiple roles, and people don't mind.
Versatility was always credited in Star Trek, and definitely for the likes of Jeffrey Combs, where like the characters he plays, they are like Jeffrey Combs characters in a sense, but he brings something different to each one. And Von Armstrong, I think, is a good example, because the characters that he plays, you had to kind of see them side by side to realize it's him, if you know what I mean. Same with J.G. Hertzler, I think, because you know his Martok, but then you realize, oh, he's also this, and he's also this, and he's also this. And he plays them all completely differently. So that's one way of looking at it.
Von Armstrong, I have to say, though, my favorite one of his was when he played the Klingon.
Yes.
In Endgame, in Voyager Endgame. He was fantastic doing the Klingon. Good as a Romulan as well, and then the various other characters that he played, but he was a great Klingon. Yeah. Hertzler, he was a Vulcan, he was a Klingon, obviously multiple different Klingons he played.
Another one I actually throw in there as well is Ethan Phillips, because he threw himself in as a Ferengi in Enterprise. And
yes,
now that episode is pretty bad, but you're bringing in 3 character actors to play Ferengis just for the crack.
No, actually, you were saying that episode is pretty bad. I actually don't think that's a bad episode.
Maybe I get my episodes wrong, but I think it's like it was one of those ones where it didn't make sense. It's a later series Enterprise episode, and maybe I'm thinking the wrong one.
Well, basically, I can tell you about that episode. Basically, the entire crew have been put to sleep, and
I am thinking the wrong episode. Yeah. No, I was thinking of the Voyager episode, the second one that the Ferengi are in is quite bad. Not the first one where they've taken over the planet. It's the second one that they've.
The one they're trying to they're trying to steal the Borg nanoprobes.
Yes,
that isn't a good episode. Now the thing is, there's parts of that episode I like because Reg is in it. Yeah, and fucking Reg Barkley is amazing. He is amazing. He is
brilliant.
But we're getting off topic here. Let's get back on topic.
So the first one we're talking about is the Romulan Centurion, who was played by John Warburton. Died in 1981. He was born in 1903, so he was in his 50s. He was in his 40s and 50s when this was done. So very much I suppose like he was done a lot of westerns, a lot of motion pictures for the time. So I suppose prominently you probably say you might know him from Funny Girl, the musical 1968. White Cliffs of Dover he was in as well, and Charlie Chan's Greatest Case in 1933. So character actor to say the least. And again, you'd be shocked to hear that the Romulan Centurions didn't have much of a name in this one. But apparently, and this is according to the card game, would you believe, the Centurion's name is apparently T-A-U-E-T-H-N. So Tauthan, if you want to call it that.
Right.
Is his name. So that's the name of the actual Centurion. Next up then is the other Romulan that actually got a name of this one, which was Decius. That was the one that the commander called for. So he was played by Lawrence Montaigne, who died in 2017. So he has actually made another appearance in Star Trek, but this is a bit of a cheat because, as is often the case, Romulans also play Vulcans. So he's Decius in this, but he's also Ston in the episode Amok Time.
Right.
So exact same actor, more or less the same makeup, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's actually the same thing. So that's why I'm not going to quiz you on that one because that one's a bit of a stretch. But
you'd have been told to feck off.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, obviously he dies in the episode as well with the attack. So again, not much on it, but at least he does get the name Decius, which is kind of like explaining very obvious and on the nose about where the Romulan stuff comes from. So it is
very Roman, obviously.
Roman, yeah, and that's also probably explains where they're getting the language from as well, because if we'll get into the review, but I like the way the Romans spoke in a very Shakespearean way, where like it's the flowery nature of it, where there's more words used when needed, but it makes sense for their language and their grammar. So you can kind of get an idea of how they are meant to speak. So next one then, so we'll leave the other Romulan until the end for obvious reasons, but we'll stick to some of the human characters now. So one I'm going to mention is Stephen Mines, who played the late Robert Tomlinson. So yeah, Tomlinson died actually only in 2019. He was age 80.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah, unfortunately, he's a one and done as well in this episode. But he was he's got again a couple of characters. He was in The Lieutenant, which a lot of Gene Roddenberry took a lot of actors from, because that was his project before Star Trek. And he's been in episodes of Days of Our Lives, Big Valley. But I suppose his most regular role was in another soap opera called As the World Turns, which is in the 60s as well. So again, very much like the kind of that kind of like Rolodex that Gene Roddenberry has, calling on people he can kind of bring in for extras, say a few lines, that sort of deal. I suppose like Stephen Mines himself would probably be known most for Bronco, in the 1961 show, and he was in 87 Precinct as well. So a lot of police procedurals, a lot of westerns, like kind of your staples for the time, really. Not much on Robert Tomlinson in a sense, but he's is essentially a red shirt for all intents and purposes. But he was lieutenant. He was a tactical officer. Phaser specialist is his term. So someone who can press a red button. That was his job, and he was very good at it. And that's all you need to be, apparently, in the 23rd century. Another one we'll throw in very quickly is Jerry Wahlberg, who played the rather mutilated Commander Hansen when we saw him at this point. So yeah, he was the obviously the commander of the station that got blasted to fuck from the plasma weapon. And again, another member of the of essentially the Gene Roddenberry Rolodex, but he is known for playing Speed on The Odd Couple sitcom from 1974, and he also played Lieutenant Frank Monaghan in Quincy, ME. In fact, he was on there for all 7 seasons, so you'll definitely know him from that more than anything else. I
did recognize him when he came on the screen. I was like, where have I seen him before?
Yeah,
I have actually seen him before.
He's been in a lot of things, actually. He's been in he actually has a rake load of stuff from a rank enough, like, again, featuring other Star Trek actors, but he's in the likes of the Amelia Earhart TV movie. He was in Columbo, Lady in Waiting, King Kong he was in as well from 1976, and MacArthur from 1977 as well, just to name a few. As in, of course, the original series. Unfortunately, this man died in 2012 when he was at the age of 90. So a very long career in show business, as it were. So next up then is we're going to talk about Paul Comey, who played Lieutenant Styles. So again, this is first season has this all the time. We have a lieutenant of the day. It's just a rolling rotation of lieutenants that they bring in as basically plot devices for all intents and purposes. So yeah, Paul Comey plays him in here, and you have to say he fucking hits out of the park, like really, like a very, very good lieutenant character.
Really well done, really well played. Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant. And so yeah, in terms of his other work, you will see him. You will definitely recognize him from The Twilight Zone. He appears in 3 very, very prominent episodes. People Are Alike All Over is one, The Odyssey of Flight 33, and The Parallels. You'll know him from The Twilight Zone if you're a fan of that show. And definitely, if it was worth a rewatch in that sense. He's also kind of done, he's in the 1980s in the 1980s series Facts of Life. And he was also in The Lieutenant, which is Gene Roddenberry's project, but he's done a lot of different kind of shows. He was in Murder, Which She Wrote, Dallas, he was in The Fugitive, and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea as well. So he's done a lot of work. Oh, he's in Baywatch as well, actually, towards the end too. And films, he was actually in Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, The Towering Inferno, and Death Wish 2. Oh, and of course, Howard the Duck.
Howard the Duck.
He has gone around.
You popped me with Death Wish 2.
Yes.
But Howard the Duck, I was like, good Jesus, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's it. That's exactly it then. In terms of the character, not much to be said really. Again, it was just a kind of a lieutenant of the day type of deal. But he was funny enough, actually, in the novelization of this episode, right? Because there was a few novels done for some of these episodes. Lieutenant Styles is actually second in command, as opposed to Montgomery Scott. So that's probably why they've established a bit of a rapport here, in that sense. Because again, there was a few rolling second officers, I think, at the time. Because if you remember, like in the episode No Man Has Gone Before, that was Gary Mitchell, because he was Kirk's mate. And then I think there was another episode, the Corporate Maneuver, where there was a second officer, basically type of character, who stays with the alien at the end to become their essentially their emissary. And he's just kind of cool with it. So it's like, oh, fair enough, we'll just get another one, And I guess it is just kind of a rolling kind of like door of second officers. It's also supposedly in the novelization he also gets killed off. So it's actually not Thomas that dies, it's Styles that dies, to kind of like reinforce the fact that Spock did try to save them and that sort of sense. Hilariously enough, he doesn't actually technically have a first name, because some novels call him John Styles, and then some other ones call him Aaron Styles. So I think he's meant to be John Styles, because and then there's another one called Andrew. There's another Andrew Styles as well. So none of them can agree on what his name is. But
Mr. Styles.
Mr. Styles, Lieutenant Styles. But very much one of those cases of a symptom of season 1 of the original series. Just your generic lieutenant. Next up then is another character from which you saw was Barbara Baldwin, who played the wife, or would-be wife, of Tomlinson. Her character's name was Angela Martine. I don't think it actually gets said in this episode, but in the script, her name is Martine. Again, one of these weird ones where she does technically play 4 different characters in Star Trek in the next generation, or not next generation, in the original series. And weirdly enough, the scripting is not consistent with who she's meant to be, right? So she's in Balance of Terror, she's in Shore Leave, she's in Space Seeds, which we'll be covering shortly, and Turnabout Intruder. So in the first 3 episodes I mentioned, she's meant to be Angela Martine, but she's given different names in the script, right? Because again, just extras and people to kind of like be in the background, they don't really explain that adequately well. And then in the last episode I mentioned, she's an actual lieutenant called Lieutenant Lisa. Like that's her actual like surname, as it were. Just a bit of a kind of a generic character in a sense. So communications officer are basically a stand-in for Uhura, in that sense. So you can think of it as like one of Uhura's work colleagues. But all played by the same actor, and not much else to say about the character itself. She was just there to be the B story in a sense, as opposed to the actress herself. She again was one of the very kind of like people available for that sort of thing. She doesn't have much else appearances really that's been known. She's known as Nurse Holby in the TV show Medical Center. So again, Gene Roddenberry loves medical dramas, so you can see why he cast her, essentially. Fun fact, actually, she was actually the former wife of the Star Trek casting director, Joseph D'Agosta, which perhaps is why she got the role, we don't know. And she became a casting director herself after she gave up acting. So I don't think she does Star Trek, but she does it for different shows as well. So she does, I suppose, take on the roles herself. So we're down to the last 2, Jerry, and 2 very prominent ones in that sense. The first one we're going to talk about is Yeoman Janice Rand, who we saw a good bit of in this episode, played by Grace Lee Whitney. So how familiar are you with with Grace Lee Whitney and Yeoman Rand?
Well, I don't know whether the character is who I'm thinking of, but the actress was definitely in The Undiscovered Country.
She was, yeah.
She was on the Excelsior. Now, I'm assuming it's the same character. I could be wrong by that.
Yeah. Supposedly, yes. We don't know. It's never actually it's never made official, but she does appear in a lot of the movies anyway, as kind of like as the same character as Janice Rand, but it's never just actually explained. You just recognize the face and go, "Oh, it's Janice Rand," and that's basically it. Like, it's a very unfortunate story about about Yeoman Rand in particular. So, like we said, she was meant to be a more prominent character in the show. She was essentially meant to be a love interest for Kirk, hence why she's the captain's yeoman, essentially. But she was dropped after the first 8 episodes. So she takes very prominent roles in some of the other episodes, like The Naked Time, Charlie X, and all those ones. Where Charlie X is more or less the point of the episode, because the titular character takes a big interest in her, and obviously doesn't like it because it's actually a very creepy episode looking back at it. But I think that was the whole idea. But it's even actually more unfortunate because the actor herself basically had a struggle with alcohol, diet pills as well, and that's essentially why they claim that's why she was kind of released. But the other story is that essentially there was sexual harassment at play from one of the casting directors, and supposedly in order so that she wouldn't actually talk or like go on about it, she was basically fired from Star Trek as a result. By this casting director. Now they've never mentioned who the casting director was. It's very kind of circumstantial. It's like kind of like rumors and kind of gossip in that sense. But that has been essentially the kind of story why she was let go after 8 episodes, was because she was being sexually harassed. Could have been worse, and the director basically, or the cast director, got rid of her essentially. So she's been quoted about it a little bit of time, and in a sense that's why she's brought back a lot in the movies, as essentially as an apology for how she was treated in the original series. So that's why she appears in the motion picture. She's in the Undiscovered Country as well. I think she's in the Voyage Home as well. I'm fairly sure I see her in the command center. When the whale probe pops in. So and she's done a lot of fan films as well. She's done Star Trek of Gods and Men. She was in Star Trek New Voyages as well. So she's done a lot of fan episodes as well. She died unfortunately in 2015. But funny enough, her 2 sons, Scott and John Dweck, all appeared in Star Trek Productions, which is quite a coincidence. So we'll probably see them at some point in our journey through Among the Stars, if you will. But then we end on a very prominent one, which is Mark Lenard. So Jerry, I am going to quiz you on this one. How many characters has Mark Lenard played in Star Trek?
Obviously, he played a Romulan.
Yes, Romulan commander.
Right, so played a Romulan.
Yeah.
Played Ambassador Sarek, who is Spock's father.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in the original series, did he play a generic Vulcan? Or just like a one-off Vulcan for an episode?
Okay.
And I think that's it, but I am probably wrong.
So you're going to go with 3 altogether? Is that what you're...
3 altogether, yeah.
You are almost correct.
Oh, you fucking bollocks.
He does play 3 characters in Star Trek. The first one that we see him as is the Romulan commander. And the generic Vulcan you were thinking of was actually Sarek. He was named at that time. He was always Spock's father, so he was always that. Because he appears first in the original series, and then obviously in the movies they flesh out his character more. But would you believe, Jerry, he is also the first actor to play a Klingon with 4-head ridges and to speak the Klingon language. He's the first Klingon you see in Star Trek the Motion Picture. He is the captain of that ship.
That big ugly fucker.
Yeah, that's Mark Lenard.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. How about that? Yeah. When you see it back, like thinking like, oh fuck, it is absolutely him, because you can see his face.
See now, I have now while we're here, now I have to Google it.
Yeah. There you go. But so yeah. While you're doing that, then I'll explain. Obviously, so Mark Lenard, a fantastic actor for all intents and purposes. Obviously, his main role is known as Sarek, but we see him in this as the Romulan commander of this vessel. So again, not a strange one is that like he doesn't actually get given a name. He's just known as the commander. So and I don't think even in the script he's actually given an actual genuine name. Although actually, in the card game where they kind of give names to people, his funny enough, his name is actually Keras, Keras, which is of course Sarek backwards. So nice little clever reference, isn't it?
When you look at him, you kind of realize it is him.
Yes,
but
definitely.
Unless you knew, you would have never guessed.
Yeah,
like not a hope you'd guess that. because it's a heavy makeup, like heavy makeup.
Very, very heavy, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, fun fact: the name of that captain of the Ike FS Amar is Crass or Crace, which again is an anagram of Sarek. So they really
Fucking Gene Roddenberry.
I tell you, it's clever. I have to say, it's clever. But yeah, Mark Leonard, an absolutely fantastic actor, and one of the most prominent faces as well of Star Trek when you think, because like when you see him, you immediately think Sarek.
Yes.
You know, you don't think of anyone, any of his other his roles. Although granted, like the other two were under like prosthetics and makeup and so forth, so you automatically assume it's him. But yeah, fantastic actor. Like, my God, the amount of work he's done is exceptional. Even outside of Star Trek, like I could go on for days about the stuff that he's done. In terms of like his he's done like stage careers. He was on Broadway. He was in Shakespeare for a while as well. I think he was part of the Much Ado About Nothing production. And then television career, he was in Search for Tomorrow. The Greatest Story Ever Told. He played Balthazar in that movie. He was in Gunsmoke, and he was in Samaritan Strip, so he's in westerns as well. He was in Mission Impossible.
Oh, wow, okay.
Not the movie, now, the TV show.
Yeah.
So he was in that as well. Again, done a lot of westerns. I suppose like he was one of his more prominent roles outside of Star Trek was Here Come the Brides from also the late 60s. So he was well known for that as well. He was actually in the TV series of the Planet of the Apes. He played General Urko, which was the I think the head of the military, the guerrilla class essentially. Yeah, he's done a lot of kind of TV roles as well. And I think he was also in Buck Rogers in 20th century.
Okay.
Yeah, he was guest starred in that. And yeah, did a lot of voiceover work in the end too. So he's done like a great load of stuff really. He was actually in a two-man play called The Boys of Autumn with Walter Koenig.
Oh,
during the early 1990s.
Obviously they met through Star Trek. So, and when did you say that was? 1990?
Early 1990s, yeah. Okay. He was also in the sci-fi series Otherworld, which is in 1985. So he had a short role in that. He was also in the movie The Radicals, from 1990 as well. So he's done an incredible amount of work.
He really has.
He really has, yeah. And again, funny enough, like he died in 1995. He essentially, unfortunately, he was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. He was anemic, and he had a biopsy, and they obviously found the problem there. And it was just way too pronounced for it to unfortunately to do anything about it. So he died of kidney failure. Again, strange coincidence. And again, the world works in mysterious ways. He died on the 22nd of November 1996, which is the premiere day of Star Trek First Contact.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Star Trek is where they first meet the Vulcans.
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Is that not a
that's
crazy coincidence, isn't it? Yeah. So yes, that's again, we had a lot of guest stars in that episode, to probably make up for the lack we had fuck all ships. So there you have it. So with that, then let's get into the scoring. This is the spicy part. So, Jerry Soule, what did you think of the plot of The Balance of Terror?
From start to finish, it had you on the edge of your seat. You didn't know what way it was going to go. And you could see exactly where they were coming from in terms of that episode. It was very much Cold War, hunting for submarines.
Yeah.
You know, from all the tactics to the ship firing to them speaking very, very quietly.
It had everything in that.
It had everything. I'm going to go with 10 on this because I thought the plot was fantastic. I'm going with 10 on this.
Interesting.
Really, really, really good episode. Really well thought out. Really well written. Just fantastic. I'm going to go 10 on this, and I never thought I'd say that for an original.
I'm quite surprised because I was thinking high myself. I was thinking 8.5 to 9 myself, because again, for the original series, this is a plot that like you don't normally see. It's very it's mature, it's intelligent, it's very, very topical. And they don't. They do normally do topical, but it's very ham-fisted. This is where is an episode where they actually do kind of get it right. So yeah, I think I don't know if I'll match your 10 because I think there's stronger plots out there. But I think I'm can I hang it down to a 9 perhaps, or 9.5?
I'll go 9.5.
9.5.
I'll go 9.5. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. That's a fair assessment. Again, so then we talk about the setting. This to me is one of the highest categories for this episode. Because again, going back to the kind of previous conversations we had in the show about how significant it is to make the best out of your environment in terms of the setting. So we were talking about the Pale Moonlight, I was given a points about how it uses different angles of certain sets to make things differently. Now, obviously, in this period of time, it's quite hard to do that. So what they've done instead is they've used stuff like lighting and darkness and shade and filtering and stuff like that to basically put across the tension and the mood on the bridge. And again, the one thing is there's only 2 sets you really see in this episode. Well, 3 technically. I'm taking a point off at the chapel. That was fucking terrible. But the 2 sets you see are the 2 bridges of each ship. That's all you see really, and a bit of engineering.
Yeah,
that's about it. The entire episode is set on those two sets, and it's just a constant back and forth between the 2, and just the different changes in like the moods of each ship. Where like if one ship is doing really well, everything is nice and bright and shiny and clean. But when it gets really tense and it gets really dark, that's where I loved it. Like there was points where like the bridge was just doused in like white backlight and then red alert.
Yeah,
you know. And it's the contrast of that and just getting over the fact that it's so claustrophobic, it's so tense, it's so quiet. It again, if it was doing a tribute to those type of movies, it absolutely fucking nailed it on that point. So for me, that's a category that I'd like to give a 10.
I can't fault you on that one, but simply because it was that good. It really, really was. The whole basically it was like a battleship or a cruiser versus the submarine, the U-boat.
Yes.
Or not the U-boat, but yeah, the submarine. It was very cat and mouse, and it went both ways. You know, it did very much go both ways. I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go 10 as well.
Okay.
This is actually doing really well.
It is doing really, really well. Now, again, it has its failings, which we'll get to, but I think on the premise alone, I think it's one of the strongest premises you've seen in the original series. You know, and again, as you said, because you've seen this for the first time, a very pleasant surprise. So next up then is writing. So again, it's important to note, like, this is like technically the ninth episode of Star Trek they've written. So the characters are not set in stone just yet in terms of like how they're going to act going forward in every episode. So there is a few inconsistencies here and there, and they do show a bit in this episode. But overall, I really, really liked the way they made a difference in how the humans speak and how the Vulcan or the Romulans speak. That to me was a very strong point, and a bit of a disappointment they don't keep that going every time the Romulans are involved.
Yeah,
they don't have that difference. Now, again, you could say like, well, now you have universal translators, everyone speaks the same, blah blah blah. For original series, they should have kept that way, but definitely for this initial episode to make them feel different, to have a bit of a language barrier, I think was a fantastic shout.
Yeah,
and again, I do feel the characters are written a bit inconsistently, but overall, the dialogue does what it needs to do, and it's to get over the paranoia, the tension, and the high stakes of this situation. So, I'd like to hear your thoughts, Jerry, but I'm very happy with the writing of this episode as well.
Yeah, I'd be very happy with it as well, especially from the Romulan side of things. But it when I say especially, they were very first time seeing the Romulans. They're written really, really well. As I said, the different dialogue, the different grammar, you know, stuff like that. It just hit home. It was like that was absolutely perfect. Even the writing for the new lieutenant or whatever it was, like the kind of basically styled kind of, you know, the look he gives to Spock, and then even how Spock and Kirk were written. Kirk for this one was written fantastically. He was a proper captain.
Yeah.
On this one, absolutely hit it out of the park with this, I'm gonna go high again. I'm not gonna go 10.
Mm-hmm.
8 to a 9, I think.
I was gonna say the same. I'm gonna go 8.5.
Okay, we'll go 8.5 on it then.
Yeah. Because like I said, I think like the little inconsistencies you can throw in to say it's season 1 Star Trek, so like the Spock being a little bit kind of like duplicitous when he didn't need to be duplicitous, that sort of thing, where like he was being sorry, not duplicitous, capricious when he didn't need to be. When he could just have said, yes, no, the Vulcans and Romulans are distant cousins, whatever it is. But of course, we've already seen the episode Enterprise where they flesh it out more to prove that there is actual distant ancestry there. So yeah, it's about we kind of thought out a sequence. Next up then is acting. So again, Jerry, you obviously from like your knowledge of the original series, you have a kind of a presumption of how the acting is going to be. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on how you felt this episode went.
In terms of this episode, obviously there were some hammy performances. The two getting married being two, I should say.
Yeah.
They weren't particularly good. Styles, wasn't it?
Yeah, Styles. Yeah.
Styles was good. Kirk was fucking out of this world amazing in this episode. I think even Spock, he almost showed nervousness.
Yes.
When they're all looking at him, going, to the point where he's almost biting his lip.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really, really, really good, really well done. The Romulans were fantastic as well. I don't think the Centurion was that good, but the commander, he was brilliant.
Mark Lennon was fantastic.
Yeah, he was fantastic. I'm gonna go, just because there was a couple of hammy bits, an 8 on this one.
I am completely agreed. 8 for acting. Yeah.
Okay.
Next up then is action. So this was an odd one for me because it should in theory be an action-packed episode, but in a sense it's actually more about the tension of it. So I don't know if I suppose you can kind of count that as part of it because it is dramatic tension,
I would absolutely count it because it had you gripped.
Yeah.
Like how are they going to get out of this? What's going to happen? And what are they going to do? And I think in terms of action, yes, because there is a little bit of action in it, but it's the tension that adds to the inevitable action. Yeah, and I really, really like that. So again, I'm not gonna go low on this because I don't think it deserves it. Because the tension for me just kept us on the edge of our seat. And I'm gonna go 8 again on this.
Yeah, I was gonna actually say 7 myself.
Well, you're gonna go 8.
Were you supposed to look kind of a little trick there, or are you just trying to intimidate me? Yeah, no, fair enough. 8, yeah. So effects wise then, again, I thought we have to kind of bear in mind the time as well.
Yeah.
Like I suppose we can take a bit of a point off for how bad the actual the fucking OS map of the sector looks. That's a bit naff. That was a bit naff.
Yeah.
The plasma weapon though I thought looked really different.
The very first time you ever see it, I think the one and only time you see a Romulan plasma torpedo.
Yeah.
It's known as the plasma weapon in the original series. You don't see anything like that in the movies, and you only hear of it, the actual name of it, in Deep Space Nine, in the episode where the Romulans are putting a hospital on Derna, which is the moon of Bajor. So that's the only time you actually hear the words Romulan plasma torpedoes.
Yeah.
But they just sound as nasty as they look in this episode. So I thought that looked fairly good. The various different images we got to see of the Romulan bird of prey, and I've always loved the fact that they have the bird of prey actually printed underneath. I've always loved that part. And then even adrift in space after it got shot with the scorch marks, and it was quite good as well. Again, we can't discount the fact that map came up and it was so shite.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna knock a couple of points off, but I'm gonna go with 7.
I'll throw 2 other points in here as well.
Okay.
The actual the station that comes up, the way that set is done is very well done.
Yes.
Effects wise, even the guys kind of like this, the burns on him looks really well for the time. Really holds up in the HD one as well.
Yeah.
And fire, actual tangible fire that the actors had to put out
yeah, and Spock actually had to put his hand in and tap it out. I'm like,
yeah. And the purple gas as well. I'll throw in a good
that was
good.
That was good.
So,
yeah.
So I think maybe that bumps it up to an 8. But I think I'll meet you with 7. I'm happy with the 7.
No,
because
I
I'm
tell you
close
what. I
there.
tell you what. Let's go 7.5. Let's meet in the middle
7.5.
there. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough. Next up then is the score. So again, Jerry, this is your first exposure to like the original series. So you heard pretty much all of their musical stings in that episode. They used pretty much every single one.
I would have heard it in the previous episode we watched, which was the Enterprise
Incident. Yeah.
I don't mind the fact that it's the same music in every episode. It's how you use that music to your advantage is the most important part. And use it, they did. It escalated tension. It kind of started off kind of okay, your typical start to Star Trek music, but then it built it up, and when it was leaving a scene, dun, 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 I love that type of stuff. I'm old school for stuff like that. But then the bells, the little and it just built up the tension, and it was absolutely fantastic. I thought, I just can't mark it down for the fact that we get it every episode, because you might get it every episode, but it's exactly how you use it that makes a difference. And they used it brilliantly in this to bring you up, down, and then boom, and you get like scares and absolutely brilliant. So it's a tough one to actually score. What are your thoughts on the score? I'm gonna go 8, but what do you think?
I was kind of thinking the same way as you, where like another aspect of this as well is how effective the silence is at certain points of the episode too. Because bear in mind, again, much because they're doing a very like obvious tribute to the submarine movie genre, the scores of those musics are bursts. So it's a case of like it could be dead silence for 10, 20, 30 minutes, and then suddenly the orchestra rises when a torpedo is launched, and it's about to hit, and like a missile being shot in like 30 seconds is like a full 5-minute scene, and it has its own suite, and it has its own blown out kind of like proportion. This is kind of doing the same thing, where like it's waiting for the hit, and then the music kicks in, and that's where like I think it, as you said, like I said, because we're using the same things, you understand it for the time. But as I said, the way it was deployed was really, really good. Yeah. So I'm willing to go 8 to 8.5 myself on the score.
Well, I went 8. So let's settle with the 8. I think that's good enough. I think 8 is good.
Yeah,
enough.
I think that's so. Yeah. So scene. Interesting category for me. But any particular scenes that stood out for you in this episode, Jerry?
Yes. One in particular is basically when Styles is starting to get a little bit racist.
Yeah.
And then Kirk just steps in. And to me was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, because the fact that this was the 50s, wasn't it? 60s. The fact that racism was, it's not like it's gone away now.
No.
But then, it would have been very, very, very prevalent, especially in America. And as we talked about before, you saw the very first interracial kiss on TV on Star Trek between Uhura and Kirk, and the complaints would have come in thick and fast for that. So obviously, we're talking about a Vulcan, so it's not a real thing. But the fact is that what he said really stood. And that really stood out in my mind, looking at, wow. I was very impressed by that. I have to say, I really, really, really liked that. To me, it was, it's even after I'd watched it and watching other bits of the episode, it still stood out in my mind. I was like, that was really good. Not only was it really good acting from the two of them, and that was that point where Spock is almost like, what's going to happen now? It just, Kirk really took charge there. To me, this is why he was captain in this episode. He was that good in this episode. So for me, that would be my scene. What would be yours now? Would it be a Romulan one, or?
Yeah, it was a Romulan commander having his kind of his crisis of confidence and having that kind of dialogue with the Centurion. I think that spoke so much. That spoke so much about the Romulans, and I don't think they actually realized themselves how powerful that was. Because this is the first time you're essentially told about the Romulans. And again, going by the fact that this is an analog for USSR like tensions at the time, and like for what it's worth, the Enterprise incident then is kind of like taking that spin, but more on a spy type of aspect of it, where you have double agents and espionage and that sort of stuff. And this is more of a case of like, you can imagine like this is like, you know what? It's a good example for like the Cuban Missile Crisis, where they were so close to an all-out war, and this is very similar to it, where it's a case of like, you could imagine that there is perhaps like a little bit of a conflict, and I'm sure like again, actual historians will come in and say, yes, now there have been little microaggressions between US and Russia around this time, very small ones, very like kind of like what's the word, like small and like very, very significant ones just between two, because they're on opposing sides and they've been told by the other side they're the enemy, do not interact with them. And that is essentially how it kind of works out here, because they've established that these two are at war. There has been essentially 100 years of not peace, but stalemate. And essentially it's a case of like, well, why the Romulans crossing the border? We don't necessarily hear why they crossed the border. They basically just took pot shots at the Earth like outpost to see how strong they were, and then left. So they basically were there to basically prove that the Earth like kind of like stations are still weaker. They're inferior to Romulans. That was the premise. Just
ready to be conquered, basically.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. Because again, that's kind of like what the USSR do. They feel the water out and see, can they fucking extend their territories? You know, very quite topical here at the moment.
Wow.
Yeah. But
if it wasn't for those damn fishermen.
Oh, I'll tell you, lads, you know, fucking Paddy Fisherman there, saving the world from World War III, lads. You'd love to see it.
And I guarantee you, them lads went back home to the pub and said, and a few pints in, I said, Jesus, lads.
No, those fishermen went back home and didn't tell the wife. It's like,
they went down to the pub and you're like, Jesus, lads, those fucking Russians are gas crack.
Russians? Never heard of them. Never liked them. Never fucking liked them. Shite football team as well. Fucking shite of them they are. Shite. Quarter last 16 in your own World Cup. Will you ever fuck off? But yeah, like it scenes wise, I think anything with the Romulan commander was superb, because he really demonstrated the inner conflict that someone on the other side could have. You know, in the same way, like when we're talking about World War I and World War II, when you have those kind of like stories about how, again, people were forced to fight because of their nations, of their states being at war. Like, you don't know this person personally. You're aiming a gun at somebody, you have no idea who they are. You could very well like them, you know, but because either politically you're told they're the enemy or whatever it is, you're forced to fight them. And that is a sad kind of like state of affairs, because it's wartime and those are things that are going to happen. And this is not necessarily wartime, but is a very highly tense and charged situation. Because again, this is around the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is around the time where you have the Iron Curtain, the spies left, right, and center between the USSR and the US, and even in other kind of like territories like even China and Japan at this point. So it's a very charged time in history. So I think it really, really nailed it in terms of putting over the point that not everyone is your enemy. They could also be in the same situation as you. They could be having the same crisis of confidence. And what I love about it is there's a lot of mirror scenes in this where the Romulan commander is having a crisis of confidence, and then 2 or 3 scenes later, Kirk has a crisis of confidence and he has to be talked back into it by McCoy. And McCoy delivers one of the greatest lines in Star Trek history. There's some brilliant, brilliant lines in this episode. So I think there's some very strong scenes. I am taking points away though for the wedding at the start and at the end. Completely pointless, completely redundant. You didn't need it. It was purely a means to an end so that something can get derailed because of this. And then they sacrifice Tomlinson to basically say, oh, casualty of war, you know, and that's basically it. So I'll talk about that more about consequences, but scene wise, I think I want to give this a 7 to an 8.
I'll go with 7.
7.
Yeah, we'll go with 7 on that one. Yeah.
Okay.
That scene for me was fantastic. As you know, you have to take points off for the absolutely stupid, ridiculous scenes that we got, but that happens in all of Star Trek. Unfortunately,
it does.
You get that everywhere. Unfortunately,
you do. 2 more categories now, Jerry. Fun fact, by the way, it is a half a point away from the Enterprise incident.
Oh,
with 2 categories to go. Yes.
So it's half a point away already.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to eclipse it then.
It is going to eclipse it,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
And we thought the Enterprise was quite a strong category. Like, so in any case, so character-wise, mostly strong from my point of view. But what was your thoughts what was your takeaways character-wise?
Well, look at the two captains. The two captains, fantastic, because it was that the game of cat and mouse. Basically,
of it all, yeah.
They both thought the same way. They both reacted the same way. It just Kirk was lucky. That's all it was, down to pure luck. Absolutely fantastic. I thought Styles in this was great, and I even thought Spock in it was great, because I just found out, like, Spock is supposed to be a non-emotional Vulcan.
Yeah.
But he was as close to showing emotion in this than he possibly could, and that's why Leonard Nimoy is fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic in this episode. But my two for this is definitely the two captains, or the commander and the captain. Absolutely brilliant, and I can't get over how good Kirk was. I really can't. Like, I've always known that Shatner was a great actor, but it was just you hear him with the overacting and stuff like that. Like the one that comes to mind is like that one. You know,
there's like an episode in season 1. I think it's actually one of the episodes before this, where there's a transporter accident and like Kirk gets split between his good and evil side. That's a very Shatner episode. Like,
I would imagine so. But for me, this wasn't your typical Shatner. This is him at his absolute very best.
Yes,
and he was fantastic in this, as was the Romulan commander. So I'm gonna go fairly high on this. I'm not gonna give him a 10. I'm not giving him a 10. I'm gonna go 9.
I will match you with 9. I totally agree with what you said there. So we are down then to our last category, which is consequences. So I'll throw this out here. I don't have much in terms of consequences, and the reason is because
I do actually. But you go first, and I'll chime in. You know, maybe you'll say the same things as me. But
I think we're going to approach this from two different angles, because I'm going to approach this more from a production and show standpoint. Okay, so the next episode we get about the Romulans in the original series is the one we've already watched. That's 2 seasons worth of like material that they haven't actively used. I think, like, if you look at the likes of the Next Generation, when they have something like, say, a very important, like very good episode like Conspiracy, right, where they have perfectly given themselves a platform to have a new villain for the next couple of seasons, with the kind of the body snatchers and whatever they end up being called, and they don't use it, and it's a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
And then you look at Q-Who, for example, where they completely redeem themselves for that, and they set the Borg to be the ever-present big threat to the Federation until the Dominion arrives.
Yes.
Balance of Terror, to me, is very much on the conspiracy side instead of the Q-Who side, because what you've done is you've set up as such an intriguing rival, not enemy, but rival in the Romulan Star Empire, and it took you 2 seasons to use them again.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really wasted opportunity. Now, I know, again, this is like the 8th or 9th episode they've written. They don't know yet what type of show they're making. And the sad part is that the likes of Gene Roddenberry, the likes of Gene Kuhn, they end up going for the likes of, not Gene Kuhn more so, but Roddenberry definitely goes for the more campy, whimsy, kind of like space adventures, as opposed to genuine, actual social commentary that they can put in. And the social commentary they do put in is a lot more ham-fisted. I don't think they actually realize how good they had it in this episode. It's one of those ones where, like, we're looking back at it now and thinking, oh my fucking God, this is superb. This is actually so well done. And then when you realize it takes them so long to come back to this material, you're thinking, how did this show survive? But, like, of course, it's an episodic format. It's in a vacuum. This episode is not touched until season 3. And even then, it's a completely different episode. You know, it's a completely different type of story. So, in a sense, I think it's a wasted opportunity. I do want to give it like some points in a sense where, like, a consequence is why how you know Kirk is a good captain. This is why, because when an actual leadership situation arises, he is on hand to make it work. Mm-hmm. But in terms of everything else, you don't obviously hear about Styles again, which is a bit of a shame. The stuff with Spock, that stuff about the Vulcans and Romulans doesn't get touched again until season 3, which is a big one for me, right? Because they don't exactly say it. And yeah, exactly. And there's no repercussions. Like this episode does kind of end as if like it doesn't end on like a whimsy on a goofy sitcom episode, because this is not the type of episode for that. But it's done as if like we move on to the next battle type of deal.
Yeah.
But they don't. The next episode is something goofy, or I think actually the next episode I think is a menagerie, so it's a completely different type of episode.
Yeah, there you go.
So the fact that it isn't followed up on until season 3 is the reason why I'm docking major points on the consequences.
Okay, I'm gonna agree with you on most of that stuff. The Romulan Vulcan, the fact that it was hinted at.
Yeah.
The fact that you see the commander and he has pointy ears, and then everyone looks at Spock going, "You're the fucking spy!" Like, what the fuck? But then the only thing that alludes to the possibility that the Romulans are an offshoot of the Vulcans is the fact that Spock says, "Oh, well, it may turn out that the Romulans may be closely tied to us."
Yeah.
But I definitely think that does have huge ramifications, because obviously they don't allude to it properly. You don't find out 100% until season 3. And then, even then, they don't even really go into it until the Next Generation. And then you find out more, especially in reunification. But like that, without this episode, you don't get reunification. You don't get the relationship between the Romulans and the Vulcans. And I think that's a very important aspect of Star Trek, is that the most logical, peaceful people in the Vulcans and the most underhanded, nasty, angry people in the Romulans are actually pretty much the same people.
Yeah, they're just they're distant cousins, yeah.
One people went this way, the other people went that way, and that's what it is. So I definitely do think, I'm not going to give it a very high score, but I definitely do think that it has some, I love to use this word, ramifications for Star Trek. So I'm going to go, let's see what you think of this. I'm going to go 6. I was going to go 7, but I'm going to go 6.
Okay, 6. I will match your 6.
Okay.
I'm happy with 6 on that one. So, Jerry, this episode then, interestingly enough, so let me just see, because we do have a lot more episodes now on this. So, this episode has beaten the Voyager Conspiracy. It's beaten the Enterprise Incident. It has beaten the Arsenal of Freedom. It's beaten the Battle and Conspiracy. And it's beaten Q Who. This episode ranks 81.5 on our scoring.
Wow.
Yes.
It did really well.
It did. Like I said, it shows you if an episode is a good premise, a good plot, and well written, it fucking works.
Yeah.
It fucking works. So, there you have it. So, again, the current rankings, obviously, the In the Pale Moonlight, Best of Both Worlds, not touched at the moment. We still have a clutch of episodes at 83, which is the Andorian Incident, Skin of Evil. But now our new 5th place episode is The Balance of Terror, followed then by Q Who at 80. So, overall, a very strong start to our original series arc.
Yeah, I first going into this, I said I'm not going to score any original episode very high, because it's like, no, it's old 60s shite. It created something that I absolutely love, which is Star Trek, but I never thought I would mark any of them high. But I'm sorry, this is actually brilliant.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that we
start on, I think.
Yeah, I think it's so. I'm so happy that we actually marked it high as we did.
Yeah, same.
Really good.
Yeah. So yeah, in that case, then that is Balance of Terror in the book. So do you agree with our scoring? Let us know in the comments. Do we have too much of a rose-tinted glasses on, or do we worry a bit harsh in the episode? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And of course, Jerry, this is only the first step on our original series arc, if you will. We're going to continue to start trekking across the universe, because the next episode we're going to do is the Doomsday Machine.
Oh, I have actually been looking forward to this one. I'm a big Star Trek Online player. I love playing Star Trek Online. I've been playing it now. It's the 12th anniversary special at the minute. For Star Trek Online. They're doing a big season on it now. Brand new episode that has Kate Mulgrew, which is Admiral Janeway. which is actually fucking brilliant. If you play Star Trek Online, please go and play this episode. It is brilliant. So I've been playing that for 12 years, and in those 12 years, I have blown up a couple of hundred doomsday devices. But I'd imagine those doomsday devices have blown me up 3 or 4 times more than I've blown them up. Because they're extremely powerful things and extremely difficult to beat. Really, really, I think this is going to be good. But we will see in terms. I don't know. Will it beat 81? Only time will tell.
Well, it may interest you to, even just from a very quick glance at this episode, it may surprise you to hear that this is actually Scotty's favorite episode.
It's Scotty's favorite episode.
James Doom was asked what his favorite episode of Star Trek was, and he says the Doomsday Machine. That's his favorite episode. So there you go. Is that a vote of endorsement, or is he just a crazy engineer? Who knows? But
Mayor, listen, he was a Scottish engineer, so he's as close to being Irish as it possibly could be in the original series, anyway.
Until Chief O'Brien was born.
The most important man in Star Trek.
It's a crossover we never got. It was very close on Relics, but we never got the crossover of Scotty versus Chief. To get them.
I just
work on a project.
It's definitely something I think we're going to touch on in the future. But I think inevitably we're going to look at best captains, best commanders, best helmsmen, best security. When it comes to best engineers, for me, there is no one better than Miles O'Brien. There just isn't.
Yeah, it's an intriguing debate. I'll say that much, because I think it's a 3-way tie for me. Like, it's hard to tell.
So are you going to 3-way tie between Scotty, Geordie, and Miles?
Not Geordie, no. I'm going Scotty, Miles, and Tucker. Tucker's an outside shout. Look at the shit he does. Look at the character.
I would go with Miles, Scotty, Tucker. That's how I would. That's how I would judge it.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Yeah. That would probably be the order I pick too, to be honest. Like, to me, it's still a 2-horse race between the two. But sure, look, in the comments you can argue about that as well if you want.
Let us know who you think the best engineer is.
Yes.
And if you don't agree with us, then you can fuck off.
Exactly. And we will tell you to fuck off regardless. No, we're only messing. We actually quite like this. So either way, lads, we are finished for this episode. So next time on The Best of All Worlds, we are going to be sticking with the Kirk and Spock era. And this time we're bringing in Commodore Matthew Decker into the equation as he tries to get his revenge on pretty much a large space snake that ate his ship.
It's not a space snake. It's a space turd.
Space turd. Sorry.
It is a space turd.
Term, yeah.
But ladies and gentlemen, as always, if you like it, give it a like. If you really like it, give it a share and comment on it. And please, please, please hit that subscribe button there.
There. Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Hit that
you have
subscribe
it right
button,
there.
please.
Yeah.
Hit that subscribe button, and if you would please share the episode so other people can see it as well. But thank you very much.
Indeed. So with that in mind, then, lads, we'll see you for the next episode. And as ever.